Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you. I forgot about that. Okay. But that's what we said. That's fine. Okay, yeah. Yeah. Okay, here we are. No signal still? Oh, it's not plugged in. Oh, thank you. My daughter wanted it. Okay. Oh, it's the opposite way. Right. With that technical difficulties, we'll be ready in a minute. Good. Maybe. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Mem Aleph and Aleph on the bottom. We had mentioned this before a couple of times. If somebody is half of a Kanani and half a free man, it was going to talk about how you have that possibility. Yesterday we had a story about there were two shutfim. One of them freed his share. Yesterday we had a story that the master knew with this Mishnah. He knew that they're going to end up, Bezin's going to come and force him to free his half. So yesterday the Gemara's case was that he wanted to get out of it, so he was marking his half to his son that the Bezin shouldn't be able to bother him, and Bezin figured out how to do it, that they should persuade him with a little bit of money, that he should agree to free him. But that Gemara really belongs on this Mishnah. I don't know why it was put before. And here's the source of that whole halacha. So it starts. Mem Aleph and Aleph. Somebody who's half a slave and half a free man. So he is half owned by himself and only half a slave. Over the Strabo Yom Echad, the Satzmo Yom Echad. He has only one Adam. He has one half an Adam. He once upon a time, okay, we don't know what happened once upon a time, how he came to the situation, but right now he only has a master on half of himself. The other half is owned by himself. He's a free man. So over this Rabbi Yom Echad, the Satzmo Yom Echad. So that we don't know. We don't know how it happened. I think we're going to talk about how did it come to such a situation. We did mention that yesterday there was a case of two shufim, that one of them freed his half. That's a simple way, and the Gemara is going to talk about that also. There might be another way. But the result is that there's a half with Chatzi ben Chorin, so he, as far as his shiva to work, he doesn't work for full time for the master because only half a slave. If he'd be a full slave, he works full time. But he's a half a slave, so only works half time. So they divide the time between his master and himself. Over the Shabbat Yom Echad, that's Satzmo Yom Echad. So 3 days a week. I guess Shabbos is off anyway, whatever the case will be, the Shabbos. But let's talk about just the time-wise, the working days, right? He would be, okay, be good, that's nice, okay. So he works every other day. We're not talking about, for sure he's the chayiv to keep Shabbos, but the question was about the working for his master. Oh, he also would be the servant, he would be the waiter, so he has to work for his master also. So every other Shabbos he'll be the waiter by his master's house, and then the other Shabbos he gets home. And as far as the weekday, so one day he works on Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Monday, Wednesday, Friday. He divides time. Everybody should be happy because everybody gets what they deserve. The Shami says it's very nice as far as the monetary financial issue, but there are other issues that have to be considered. The Shami Yomim, Tikante Misrabo. The Sasmo Tikante, he took care of his master gets half of his work. That's what he did, that's what he owns. But he didn't take care of himself. As far as his financial issues, also he took care of him. But he has other issues besides financial issues because he can't get married. Lisa Shefchen he can't marry a Shefcha because his half of him is a Ben Chorin who's also to marry a Shefcha Kananis. Every Kanani marries a Shefcha Kananis. A Ben Chorin marries a Bas Chorin. So he's not allowed to marry the Shefcha because he's half for Ben Chorin. Amud Beis, Bas Chorin Yefshe Shekvar Chetzio Eved. He can't marry either a Bas Chorin because half of him is an Eved. What's the other choice? Yibatel. He shouldn't marry. No, that can't be. Yibatel, should he not marry? He should just be Batel. Is that a possibility? The world was created for procreation. Hashem did not make the world that it should be empty. Hashem made that it should be populated. So that's what's just, we got, of course, the purpose of creation is not that it should be populated, but yeah, but for whatever reason Hashem made the world, He wants there should be people. You need people in order to have whatever Hashem wants from the world. So Hashem wants the world to be populated. So there's that's the question. Why doesn't it say Pruvu? Because it said that. There's a few tourism why it goes so to a pasuk. The pasuk is a pasuk, not a pasuk in the Torah. But there it's elaborating. Besides Pruvu, the mitzvah to procreate is also that the Hashem made. The reason why the person bring Pruvu, half of him is an Eved. The Chatzi ben Even Pruvu. Is the Chatzi Eved Chayvin Pruvu? Is that Pruvu? So Taisus brings proofs to say that Eved is not. He brings proofs that maybe it's not so simple, but he brings proofs that Eved is not Chayvin Pruvu. So is the Eved Chayvin Pruvu? Okay. Taisus
not so simple.
Taisus goes to the trouble to prove that evidence, but it's part from Pruvu. A guy doesn't have mitzvah of Pruvu, does he? A guy, is that what you said?
Yeah.
You know that Rabbanah that's because it says the pasuk of that's not on the list of the seven mitzvahs of Bnei Noach. The Gemara talks about even if it says before, but if then you learn up later on when the Torah was given. So then was it only for Am Yisrael? But that's a nice point. He's saying that it says right away in the beginning that Hashem told Adam Pruvu. But as far here, the Gemara says we're not. So Bishami says we can't let him in a situation where he can't marry. It's interesting. It doesn't say because of his own personal pain that he can't marry. It says because Hashem wants the world to be populated, so we have to do something for him for a situation. If he wants the master doesn't want to free him. Why should he free him? He has a slave. So you can't make stuff and have a Kanani again. But the question might be that he can make himself a Eved Ivri. Why doesn't he sell his free half as an Eved Ivri? Ivri is a lot of married Shivcha Kananis. It could be depends if he was sold for an Eved Ivri because he stole or because he sold himself. Maybe if he sells himself, it's not so simple that he can marry a Shivcha Kananis. But that might be a question. How come he can make this free half to become a slave in a way that he's be able to marry a Shivcha? But here, that's not a possibility. So the only possibility is to free the slave half. Elam, if they tikkun olam, kofanis rabba also ben chorin, because tikkun olam, what's tikkun olam, that the world should be fixed up in a way that he should be able to procreate. So we force the master to make his half free. So he loses. This is Bisham. And now he's a free man. Now he marries a bas chorin, but the master is not fair to the master that he doesn't. He's freeing his slave, and he lost $50,000. If a slave costs $100,000, so he lost half of him, and no one's paying him. He's making him free. So the Eved says, I'm going to pay you when I get money. Because and the Eved writes a contract, a check for the half of his value, and whenever he gets money, he's going to pay. Chazu Beisil, I was going to be Beishamai, Beisil retracted, and they also hold like Beishamai, that he's right, there's tikkun olam, you have to force the master to free his half in order that he should be able to marry and have children. I don't recall. Okay. We had the Yitches Dover and the Masechah Shabbos over there. Doesn't say opening the Mishnah maybe, but the Gemara says over there that Beisil also like holds like Bishama in the 18 Gezeres over there. But then it says that also they also we have half of Shas already. We had it in Yavamis. I'll just put it on the screen so everybody can enjoy it. Where did it go? Ah, ah. Is it on? Is it on the screen? I'm not sure if I got it on the screen.
No,
If we ever
no.
had it, it's not on yet. Okay, maybe let's see. Now, it's if we ever had a half a chance, did we ever have that we still read the Mishnah? So here's in a Mishnah. So here's the Mishnah in Yevamis, 15. Okay. Okay. But thank you for the interest. I'm not sure what I'm doing here, but I'll try. What am I supposed to do here? Okay, I'm not sure. I'll get off it again and come on. Good. Okay. So that's the halacha. That a chatzi ben chorin, we force the master of the chatzi eved to free the slave in order that he should be able to marry. Who's he going to marry? A bas chorin. It'll be a complete ben chorin. Yesterday's Gemara said that someone wanted to get out of it, so he was marking his half to his son that the doesn't be kofa. But there are other ways of being kofa, persuading without twisting his arm. That they shook a little bag of money, and the son was agreed to free him. So the Gemara starts off like a left field question, and the Gemara is eventually going to come back to our Mishnah. Our Mishnah has the case that you have a chatzi ben chorin. How did it come to be? How did it come to be? So the Gemara doesn't start off with two shutlim. We had a simple case yesterday that there are two shutlim that own the eved, and then one of them frees him, so it becomes a chatzi ben chorin because one of his masters freed him. But the Gemara doesn't say no that yet. The Gemara starts off that the pashas would be that he freed half a slave. The master slave, not that they were shutlim, not that they were partners. One person owned the slave, and he said, and he freed half. And the Gemara thinks that a non-Mishnah might say that you could do such a thing. So the Gemara is starting off from that sugya. Is it possible to free half a slave? Why not? Well, not yet. That's a kash on the whole issue that you're not allowed to do these things. But if you did it, you didn't. The mitzvah to do it, whatever the case might be, you need a minion, whatever the issue is. But the Gemara is not for some reason all these sugyas don't go into the fact that you're not allowed to do it. The question is if it works. Now, if you have a reason to do it, does it work? And the Gemara is just had to say that you can't free half a slave. And the Gemara is going to talk about why. So we're talking about. That's your own business. Does he become a free man? Does he become a free because of the liberation that the master liberated? If he says, I wanted to be a nice guy, whatever, and you have Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you get off. Okay, that's his business. But he's still a full eved. He doesn't, It's a very interesting situation. It doesn't happen often, of course. Now it doesn't happen because we don't have avodim. But even if there was, the chatzi eved, but it always comes up in Shulchan Aruch. What's the chatzi eved, chatzi ben chorin? Because he's very interesting status that he's inherently half and half. Could he blow shofar? Could he blow shofar for himself? Because half of the eved, could he be mostly the half of the ben chorin? These kind of questions comes up in Shulchan Aruch a lot of times. The lumdus of being a split personality. He has a split personality. Because but maybe he can't even blow shofar for himself. Maybe he can't be Megillah for himself. Like interesting situation. Okay, here goes the Gemara. Is it possible to free half a slave? If somebody freed half of his slave, Rebbe says it works. He became half free. Chacham say it didn't work. He didn't become half free. He's a complete slave. And the Gemara is going to eventually get into the subject. How in our Mishnah do you have half a slave? But the Chacham say that if somebody frees half a slave, it doesn't work. I'm a rabbi. There's going to be an sugya of rabbi. Yes, right. So and he's half free, and the Chacham say he's not half free. He's a full slave. There's going to be rabbi, and then there's going to be Av Yosef. The sugya is going to be rabbi and Av Yosef today. I'm a rabbi. Nachlokas b'shtar. Rebbe said, okay, I'm saying too much already. But machlokas b'shtar, but the Gemara is going to end off aval b'kesef. If you look at the bottom line in the screen, aval b'kesef divya kol kana. There are two ways to free a slave. One is with a shtar, a get shechur, that we know the whole time you give a document of liberation that says Aviat ben chorin, and there's also money that he gets money to redeem himself. for his value. So if he freed him with a get shechor, that's the machlokas if it's possible to free half a slave. The Rebbe Savar, over there is talking about a woman, a man that had relations with a woman who was that's the pasuk. This pasuk over here, this line, which part of the where's the page over here? Yeah, we're talking about it. It's a pasuk. Where is to find the pasuk here? I'm sorry that I don't know where he's going to tell it to us. Here it is. Pasuk in Vayikra Yutes pasuk. A man had relations with a woman. She's a woman who's a shifcha that's designated for a man, and redeemed, she wasn't redeemed, or her freedom was not given to her. So she says she was designated to a man. Which man do you think she was designated to? If she was a shifcha? No, designated as a wife. She was designated as a wife to a husband, to a slave. A shifcha is not a slave. So there's a shifcha that's designated to a man who's a slave, probably, and redemption, she was not redeemed, or freedom was not given to her. Bikoras tihiyeh, which I think they translate to mean that she's chayiv malchus. Lo yimsuki lo chupasha. They're not chayiv misa because she was not freed. If she'd be freed, then she'd be eshes ish, and someone has relations with eshes ish, they're chayiv misa. But she wasn't she wasn't freed. So therefore, it's going to be a chayiv malchus, but it's not going to be a chayiv misa. So very interesting pasuk, like very. So the pasuk pshat, you might say that she's a shivcha that's married to not married. It's not called a marriage mamish, but she's designated to a man, a shivcha, and that's what the masters would do. They would they would couple up the shivcha and the eved, and she's designated to this eved. So it's usher for a man, a regular Jewish man, to have relations with her. Not chayiv misa. It's not called the eshes. Okay, that's the pasuk. And this pasuk, Vavdei Lan of Dasa, is going to be a machlokas what it means. Machlokas Tanam, Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Kiva, I think what pasuk means. She was redeemed, not redeemed. So the pasuk pshat surely would be that she was not redeemed. She was not redeemed, and freedom was not given to her. So she's a regular full-fledged shifcha that's designated to a eved, and if someone had relations with her, he's not chayiv misa, but the chayiv malchus. But some other learns differently. Some say Havdei Lo Nifdasa, redeemed, not redeemed. That means she was chetzi. She was redeemed and not redeemed. She was a chatzi shivcha, chatzi baschon. Some learn that that's the pshat in the pasuk.
Oh, somebody redeemed her. What is the boundary redeemed?
It says that how do we get to be such a situation? Again, it doesn't say. Some say that the thinks she's a chatzi shivcha baschon. Let's just leave it as far as we can. So what is the pasuk? What's the Gemara want? The Gemara wants the comparison between the beginning and the end. The pasuk says two things. One was redeemed, and one is chufsha. The pasuk, here's the pasuk, top line of Deilon. If that's chufsha l'nitama, that's pasuk we just read. She was not redeemed, let's say, redeemed, not redeemed, whatever you want to say. But redemption, it means with money, and chufsha would mean freedom with a shtar. That's how one understands that this is talking about redemption. It means with money, and chufsha means with a like the word chofesh. The word chofesh. Freedom. I'm not talking much. Let's not go into the full-fledged or not. Just what kind of liberation? How was she liberated? Either by the issue is money. Here it says that she was not the redeemed, and she was not freed. And freed means by shtar. And all the Gemara wants us to say the pasuk puts together the redemption of money together with the redemption, with the liberation of a shtar in the same pasuk. That's what the Gemara is pressing on over here. Maki shtar the kesef, the pasuk. In this pasuk, it compares both of them, shtar, which is a chufsha, to the kesef, which is a pidyon. So you have a pasuk that compares the two ways of liberating a slave by shtar and by kesef. So we're going to learn a hekesh. Ma kesef ben kula ben chetzio, of shtar nami ben kula ben chetzio. We want to know, is it possible to give to free a half a slave with a shtar by giving him a get shechur that says half of you is free. So we're going to learn out from kesef. Kesef, the Gemara is going now, as it says in 2 lines later, kesef divya kol kanim. That it's definitely possible to free half a slave by taking money for half the slave. If you're going to do it through redemption of money, it's definitely possible to free half a slave. Right, the word pidyon means with money. I'd like to Pidyon means money, and chufsha means with a star. So the pasuk compares it. So the Gemara is going now. Rabba, this is again Rabba. Rabba comes with Anacha with the premise that a person surely could free half of a slave through redemption. But the question is if you could free half a slave with a contract, with a get shechur. And just to bring out the point, the Gemara is going to say in a second that there's no such thing as divorcing half a wife. When you talk about a get, there's no such thing as divorcing half a wife. He divorces her or doesn't divorce her. You can't do half a wife. So that might be a reason why you can't divorce half a slave. You can't free half a slave with a star because a star doesn't work like that. Like the same way that a get only divorces a complete unit, body. So too, maybe on the other hand, the Gemara is saying now that kesef you could. With kesef you could redeem half the slave. So this pasuk that it compares a star to a kesef, that's a source to say that you could even make a star for half of the freedom. Again, Amirabba, machlokas b'shtar. The machlokas, if you could redeem half, if you could free half a slave, is if you wanted to free him with a document. The Rebbe Savar, you learn out star from kesef. That kesef you could do half, so you could also do star half. How they learn this pasuk which compares both pidyon of money to redeeming to freeing with a contract. Makish star kesef. The pasuk itself compares the freedom of a contract through a contract to the freeing through money. And by money we know that you could do half a slave. Just like money, you could free all of him, redeem all of him, or redeem half of him. So too, by star also, you could either free the whole slave with a star, or you could free the slave. What do Rabbanan hold? Why do Rabbanan not agree? And they hold you can't free half a slave with a star. Because it says there's a pasuk that says because of must decree. So here it says the word law, it says by a get, it says the word law by a shechur of an eved. So you learn that there has to be like a get. That's by a woman you can't divorce half a wife. So too, you can't free half a slave with a star. So that's machlokas Rabbi and Rabbanan. If you can free half a slave with a star. Everybody holds that by kesef you could do half, and probably you probably has to go of day loan of dasa, that the pasuk is mashma that's that you could do. So probably you're paraphrasing the pasuk that it says up a couple of lines of day loan of dasa. That some learn that it means that she was redeemed and not redeemed, that this woman was a chatzi basorin, that you could do by money, and fine. So what do we have so far? That she was redeemed and not redeemed. So what do we have so far? That everybody, according to Rabbah, everybody holds that you could redeem half a slave. You can make him half a slave, half free man by freeing half of him with money that he was redeemed for half of his value. And there's a machlokas every in the Rabbanan. If you could do the same thing with a star, could you give the get shechur and say, "Harei chetziach meshuchra"? I'm freeing half of you with a document, because by a get you can't do that. You can't divorce half a wife. So that's the reason to say that maybe Lola, you can't make a document of a get shechur for half a eved. And the other side is to say that you learn it out from money. The pasuk says together hekesh in the same pasuk that you just like money you could do, so also you could do with a star. All that is Rabbah. The Gemara says that at this point, it seems that you're saying that the machlokes between Rebbe and Rabbanan and which drasha is a stronger drasha. On one hand, there's a hekesh of star, the money, to say that you could. On the other hand, there's a gzer shava law to say that you can't. So if the Rabbanan, if Rebbe says that you could, because learning out of the hekesh, it means hekesh overrides gzer shava. You mean to say that a hekesh means a comparison. The pasuk compares both of them together. Gzer shava means that there's a link, a code word that you make it gzer shava. Are you saying that Rebbe holds a hekesh is stronger than a gzer shava? Lo, the kul yam gzer shava adifa. It could be everybody holds a gzer shava is stronger, and really the Rabbanan should be right that you learn out from a get that you can't make a get shechur for half a eved. But here it's not such a strong gzer shava. There's such thing even if the gzer shava, but if there's a kasha on the lomdus on the spura, so the gzer shava is not so strong. It talks about if it's how do you call that, gzer shava that's mufna or not. There's different levels of gzer shava, but here if there's a difficulty in the reasoning, so it makes the gzer shava weaker. What's the kasha on the gzer shava? That a isha ain't yotza b'kesef. There is no such thing as a woman getting released through money. The only way, b'ksiva miskareshes, v'ena miskareshes b'kesef. That dafka b'ksiva. So the fact that there's no money over there by a woman, so then you can't learn out to an eved to say that it's possible that you cannot free half. By a woman, there's no musag, there's no concept of getting divorced half by a contract because there's no concept of getting released by money. So there's no halfway. But by evet, that there is such a thing as getting released by money, by redemption. And over there, it is possible to do it halfway. So maybe the Gzer Sheva is not strong. And even though by your wife it's not possible, by Rebbe it is possible. So the Gemara explains why Rebbe would say that here the Hekesh is stronger than the Gzer Sheva, because the Gzer Sheva has a weakness to it. Adkan was Rabbah. So just to summarize what Rabbah said, that everybody holds you could redeem half a slave. A slave could be freed halfway, but if it comes with redemption with money. But by Shtar, as a Machlokas Rebbe and Rabbanan, Rebbe holds you could do that by a document also. You give a shechor for half of him, and Rabbanan say you can't. This is all Rabbah. Rav Yosef takes the other way of looking at it. Rav Yosef says, more extreme, Machlokes b'kesef. The Rabbah said everybody holds kesef you could do halfway. Rav Yosef says that's the Machlokes case. And he's going to end off to say, but Bishtar, everybody holds that you can't. 2 lines later, Bishtar, everybody holds that you can't. Different. Machlokes b'kesef. Rebbe who holds that you could redeem half a slave, that's Rebbe, only with money. The Rebbe Savav Haftei Lo Nefdasa means Peduya Ve'ena Peduya. Rabban and Sabri, they were talking Koloshim and Adam. There's a machlokes over there what the pasuk means. It really is machlokes by Shifcha Charufa. This whole pasuk about Shifcha Charufa is it talking about what is she a Shifcha Charufa? Is it talking about that she's half slave, half free, or does it mean that she was not redeemed at all? So it's machlokes, and that's what the machlokes is going to be here. Rebbe says Haftei Lo Nefdasa means that she's redeemed and not redeemed, half. And that means that you see that by case, if you could redeem half a slave, and the Rabbanan say it doesn't mean that. Rabbanan Sabi did talk Lashon Adam. That's a way of saying that the Torah talks the way people talk, and even though it says an extra word, you don't darshan on the pshat level, you don't, or even on the drash level here, you don't darshan it, and it means that she was not redeemed. Like in him what say, in what else do you have? Other psukim that says in Ganov Ganev. It has sometimes that the pasuk says the mokor, and then it says that's the way you talk. In the translation. Right, there's no relationship that with it. Like what do we have in the Yud Gimel Midos, Yanake Lo Yanake? Also in the Pashup Pshat, it doesn't mean yes Nake Lo Yanake. It's a drash level, but on the different there's such a thing as talking that way. I'm not sure if we talk in English like that. Yeah. Yeah, but that's different. It's not much different. It's different. Here is a mokar with the mokar like he must. Right. Here is, but Havdei means redeemed, not redeemed. That's not the same. This is saying the word. You're not saying. You're saying the other way. You're not saying the question that you're saying yes and no means yes and no. You're saying that it means only one thing, and the word is extra. That in English, you usually translate it. Surely, if it says you must say, whatever. If it's surely going to be found or going to. But I'm not sure if that's in English. We don't talk that way. Emphasize, okay. Okay. I'm not sure that's how they. I'm not sure if that's what it means over here. That's not the way we talk in English, but there is such a language in Hebrew that's how it's spoken. So he says, yes, in Hebrew it's called the makor, means that the word, the shorish of the word, without any explaining me, you, without any, how do you say that in vocabulary. I'm not saying you, me, he, just saying the word. Found, not found. Or redeemed, not redeemed. It just says the word redeemed. So anyway, I want to say that that's not talking about a shifcha who's half freed. It just means that she was not redeemed. So you don't even have any source to say that by money also they could be redeemed. The only reason where we learned till now that you could redeem half a slave is because the pasuk said that's the case of the shifcha charufa, that she's half free, half redeemed, half not redeemed. Of they, none of dasa. Yes, no. But the Rabbanan say that doesn't say that. It means she was not redeemed. So you don't have any source to say that even by money that it could be half a redemption. But Rav Yosef says that everybody would hold, even Rebbe, who's the maker, when he says that you could redeem half a slave, you could free half a slave, but by shtar he also holds that you can't. He doesn't hold of the drasha to learn out shtar from money. Rebbe Yom HaKana, I skip. Okay, so we have Machlokas Rebbe and Rav Yosef. Where the Machlokas? I'm sorry. Rabba and Rav Yosef, what Rebbe and Rabbanan are talking about. According to Rabba, everybody holds that with money, you could free half a slave. Machlokas is with a shtar. Rebbe says yes, even by a shtar. And according to Rav Yosef, everybody holds by a shtar, you cannot. Rebbe just meant to say that by money, you could redeem half a slave. Now the Gemara is try to look for proofs. Who's right? Is Rabbi right or is Rabbi Yosef right? Meisvei. Here it goes. This, okay, I'm trying to circle it. This word bishtar. That's a chief of Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef backed out. Rav Yosef said that by shtar, nobody holds that you could do half a shechur. And here Rabbi says you could. It says openly. Before the price, it didn't say the word shtar. It just says Amashach Chasi Avdo. Rabbi Mokana Chamul Okana. Price one more word. Amashach Chasi Avdo b'shtar. So that's something like according to Rabbi, even with a shtar, it's possible to. That's the most extreme. Money is easier than shtar. And here it says Rabbi holds even with a shtar, you could redeem half an evan. So that was against Mamish against Rav Yosef and the Samaka. Tifta Rav Yosef Tifta. That's this proves Rav Yosef. The Gemara wants to go on the other issue. Okay, so Rav Yosef is wrong on one point that he said. He said that by shtar everyone knows that it's not good. What did he say? That my money is a machlokis. Rabbi said that my money, everybody holds that you could redeem half a slave. And according to Rav Yosef, he wanted to say that by money is a machlokis, that Rabbanan hold you cannot. That's still a point that has to be addressed. Even though we disproved Rav Yosef in half of his sentence, half of his statement about shtar, that he said Rabbi would not allowed to free a slave, half a slave with a shtar, that we see that he's wrong. But the other point, how do you free a slave with money? Rav Yosef said that by money is a machlokis, and Rabbi said that everybody holds, even the Rabbanan will agree that you could redeem half a slave with money. So we want to know if it's possible to disprove Rav Yosef on both counts. Nema, the shtar with the pligi of a b'kesef lo pligi. Since the Brisa just says machlokes was b'shtar, this Brisa says hamashach chas of the b'shtar. It doesn't say b'shtar or b'kesef is a machlokes. It says hamashach chas of the b'shtar. We could medayik that the machlokes is only b'shtar. If it would be with kesef, but with money, then even Rabbanan would say that you could be half. He could get himself half freed. So it seems to be a raya against Rav Yosef on both counts. Let's say that we have a raya against Rav Yosef on both counts. Not only on the count that he said b'shtar everyone knows not, also on the point that he said the kesef is a machlokes. Here we see the diak seems to say that by kesef everybody holds that you can redeem half a slave. Rav Yosef says no, you can't knock me off on the second point. It's true you knocked me off on one point that I said, but you can't knock me off on another point. I could say that even though the Bryce only talks about a shtar, who are then so too, they would argue by kesef also. And the Rabbanan who say that you cannot redeem half a slave with a shtar would also say you cannot redeem half a slave with money. So why does it say about a shtar? The reason why it talks about a shtar is to tell you the extreme. Rebbe's extreme. The Rebbe holds that you could redeem half a slave even by a shtar. Shtar is a bigger chiddush. Money is more simpler that you could do half, because shtar is like a get, and a get is all you can do. So the reason why it talks about a shtar is to say the extreme shita of Rebbe that even by a shtar he allows you to redeem half a slave. Why is that a reason to talk about one case? Maybe talk about only kesef. You want to talk about only one of them. You want to say the chiddush. If it would be elaborate, it would say the arguing both b'shtar, both b'kesef. Rebbe holds yes, everyone knows that. But it wants to say only the extreme case. So I picked the extreme case of Rebbe to say that he's matir even by shtar. Maybe say the other way. Say the chumrah of the Rabbanan that even by money they don't allow you to redeem half. The answer is koch the Torah that play. It's a bigger chiddush to say the leniency. If you have a choice to say the chumrah of the Rabbanan, they're so extreme chumrah, or the chiddush of Rebbe that is so extreme mekel, it's a bigger chiddush to say that somebody's mekel. I think Rashi usually explains that to be machmir is not as big a chiddush as to be able to be mekel. You have to have more strength. You have to have more decision, more surety that to say that it's mutter. To say it's us, if you're not sure, say it's us. But to say that it's mutter, that's the biggest strength. So at this point you have machlokas Rabbi and Yosef. Now we changed the machlokas. We have to edit the machlokas now. That b'shtar is a machlokas. Everybody agrees that Rebbe and Rabbanan are arguing about a shtar. Could you free half a slave with a shtar? Rabbi and Yosef, everybody agrees. The Parish of Brisa that Rebbe says yes, Rabbanan say no. How about with money? Rabbi says everybody holds that you could redeem half a slave with money, and if Yosef says that's also machlokas Rebbe and Rabbanan. That's holding so far. Not a Gemara. We would destroy Yosef on one of his 2 points, but not on both of them. We disproved him. Yes. Cost to be made, right? It's coming to the cost to be done. we prefer. Doesn't mean- Not that you shouldn't, but it's when you have a choice. If you want to say one chiddush, the big chiddush is to show that somebody holds that it's mutter. Some people, for some reason, they take this Gemara when it says Koch Tateiradiv to say that it's supposed to be maker. Like as if it doesn't say that. It says if someone is so strong, they're able to be maker. That's something to be impressed. But yeah, but he has to be sure because he's sure, not because he wants to correct there. He can't have muscles. I want to be strong, so I'm gonna. If you have muscles, then you can be strong. You don't have muscles, you can't be strong. So you have to be smart enough to prove. If they're able to, right? If they're able to, right? It was if not. So here, if you find that a Rebbe holds you can do something, you can be mashach or half a even with a star. That's a unique thing to say. That how makel he could be. Rebbe. You could do right. You could do half. Rebbe Yosef was arguing in both cases, both for star and for kesef. Rebbe holds you could. Rabbanan say you can. So you have a choice of saying either extreme. You could say Rebbe holds even star yes, and Rabbanan say even kesef no. So we'd rather say the extreme heter than to say the extreme chumrah. So far, that's to summarize again where we're holding that Machlokes Rabban of Yosef, how to understand Rabbanan. Rebbe is no question. Rebbe's fresh price that even the star, everybody agrees to this. Except fresh price that even by star you could free half a slave. The Rabbanan that say they're machmir. Rav Yosef says they're machmir even by kesef. You can't redeem half a slave at all. And according to Rabbi, they would agree by money that you could. Now I want to look at to prove this. Can we prove anything about this machlokes? Tashma, of day. It's coming to talk about the parsha over there by Shifcha Charufa. Tashma, Vavdei. It says in the pasuk Vavdei Lon of Tas. If it was a Vavdei alone, it means that she was redeemed. There's a pasuk that said she was redeemed, Yochel Hakol or Kula, that she was completely redeemed. No, it says Lon of Dasa. Tamalom Lon of Dasa. She was not redeemed. So it says only Lon of Dasa. Lon of Dasa means she was not redeemed at all. Yochel Hakol, that she wasn't redeemed at all. No, it says Vavdei. It means yes redeemed, not redeemed. Okay, so how do you have yes redeemed, not redeemed? The kesef of a kesef, that she was redeemed and not redeemed for half of her, either with money or valuables. Doesn't have to be money. Someone redeemed her for giving some exchange of valuables. So she was half redeemed. That's the case of the Torah when it talks about a shivcha charufim. It means that she was that she was half redeemed. This Brisa says that I only see that it's possible to be redeemed halfway with money, like it says, of day. Pidyon means with money. How about being redeemed halfway with a star, which is our subject we're talking about? Is it possible to be half redeemed with a star? I mean, we said that we know that according to Rabbi Yes and according to Rabbanan not. The Brisa continues, this pasuk that compares pidyon with money also to a chufsha, which means the redemption of a star. And how do you know that means a star? I know it means a star. Before we just said it means a star, but here he's going to say I know it because it says la. Chufsha l'nitan la. Because of la, sefer krisis. So by get, it's talking about with a document. So too, chufsha l'nitan la also means a document. Now lahalan b'shtar, kan b'shtar. So what do you see? That also it's possible to redeem a shivcha with a star. How about half a shivcha? And the alachetzel b'kesef or kula b'shtar. So far, he just told me cases of redeeming even halfway by money. You can do even halfway, half day loan of dasa, or a complete redemption with a star. How do you know that's also possible to be half a redemption with a star? This is mamish what Rebbe would say. This pasuk compares both of them together. So once it says by kesef it's possible to do halfway, so a star is also possible to do halfway. Just like with kesef, it's possible to even redeem halfway. Also with the star, it's possible to do halfway. What would this Brisa say? In short, the Brisa says that it's possible to redeem half a slave, both with money and with star. So what do we say if we read the Brisa? We would say Rebbe's thought. That's Rebbe. But what does the Gemara do with this? Bishlam of Yosef. What is it? Yosef says the arguing in both cases that it's extreme. But Rebbe says you could redeem half a slave both with money and with star, and Rabbanan say you cannot redeem half a slave not with money, not with star. So how does he learn the Brisa? Bishlam of Yosef. What's the Tosa? Means Rabbi Yosef after he was disproven. In the beginning, he said two extremes. He said in the beginning that star Rebbe also holds that, and that is disproven. So we're talking about Rebbe Yosef after he was disproven. It means he gave in halfway. He says that it's true that Rebbe holds that you could redeem half a slave even with a star, but the Rabbanan hold you cannot. He wants to say the Rabbanan extreme still the other way. You cannot redeem half a slave even with money. So according to that sheet of Rebbe Yosef, how many Rebbe? Very simple. The price is Rebbe. That's what it says. That Rebbe says you could redeem half a slave with a money or with a star. Nice. Ella the Rabba, what's the problem with Rabba? Reisha Divri Akol, but say for Rebbe. The Reisha, everyone would agree because it says you say that money. Everybody holds that you could redeem half a slave with money, even the Rabbana. And the Sefer that says you could redeem half a slave with star is only Rebbe. It's not so neat. It isn't neat to say that the Reish is everybody and the Sefer is Rebbe. So the Gemara says two terutzim. Amalacha Rabba in Reish Divri Akol b'Sefer Rebbe. It's not bothered by it that the Reish everybody was talking about in the Sefer only Rebbe took over to say that even by star also you could redeem a half a slave. And Rashi is even simpler. Rashi is easy. Amar Rebbe. It's Rebbe's talking. It's true. Rabbanan would have agreed to the Reisha, but he's not. Rabbanan are not talking over here. You don't have to say that the Reisha is everybody and the Sefer is Rebbe. The whole Brisa is Rebbe. Rabbanan weren't in this Brisa. They weren't mentioned at all. So Rebbe says what he holds, both with money and with star, you could redeem half a slave. If the Rabbanan would talk, they would say money yes and star not. So it's no right to have Yosef. If Motor had a right, there's no right. Rabba is just as good. So again, the Machlokes is according to Rabbanan, could you redeem half a slave with money? That's Machlokes Rabbi Yosef and Rabba. Everybody holds that according to Rebbe, you could redeem half a slave even with a star, and everybody agrees that according to Rabbanan, you cannot redeem half a slave with a star. The Machlokes Rabbi and Yosef is according to Rabbanan, could you redeem half a slave with money? Now after all that, we come back to our Mishnah. All this was the introduction to our Mishnah. What did our Mishnah start? There was such a situation where you had a half and half. So how do you get that? Now so we started the Mishnah. How do you get such a situation that a slave is half redeemed? Just Shlomo the Rabbah, Mukam Lo B'Kesef Divri Akol. Rabbah says everybody holds is the situation how you could get half a slave, because Rabbah says but with money everybody could agree. One also agree you could redeem half a slave. So our Mishnah that talks about half a slave is very simple. That the master let him be redeemed halfway. Our Mishnah could be everybody. Eladav Yosef, let me Rebbe, V'lo Rabbanan. Why does Rabbi Yosef say? Rabbi Yosef is extreme. He says, according to Rabbanan, there's no way to free half a slave, not with star, not even with money. So all this whole Amud, but just to get to this point, it's very simple. Our Mishnah says there's a situation of a chesed ben chorin. How did it happen? And according to Rabbi Yosef, they were one and all, it can't happen. There's no such thing as freeing half a slave. According to Rabbah, the Rabbanan agree with money. But according to Rabbi Yosef, there's no such way. So as our Mishnah not the Rabbanan, only Rebbe could be the author of our Mishnah that you can free half a slave. So the Gemara says a simple terrorist that Rabbi Lezer said right away at the beginning of the day, and it closed off the whole sugi. We didn't have to talk about Rabina, top of the page. The Eved shall shnei Citrin v'divrei Akol. Simple that the way you get an Eved chatzi ben chorin can be irrelevant to our whole machlokes. If he was, of course, the Eved of two partners and one of them freed him, so everybody knows that he becomes half free. The only machlokes was if I have one person has a whole lever, can I free halfway? But if there are two shutzim and one of them he freed everything. He freed his whole half. So that's not a question. So that's no right from our Mishnah. Everybody reads our Mishnah, everything's simple. You want to know if it's possible to free half a slave? That's a question. And Rabbi will say that Rabbi Yosef will say that the according to Rabbanan, no such thing as freeing half a slave. But you want to know, is it possible to have a half a slave, half a Eved? Yeah, sure it can be. There were two shutfim. One of them freed his whole half. So you get a chatzi ben chorin. And now the Gemara goes on to the sugi. Once we mentioned it, we go on to the machlokes about freeing half a slave. I just have a kasha that I didn't look around, but I don't understand the whole Gemara, what the whole Gemara is talking about. This whole Gemara we just learned, I don't get anything. Because what's the whole sugi talking about? In our Mishnah, we're talking about not the monetary part, we're talking about the status. We're talking about is he allowed to marry, is he half slave? So if it has to do with money, when you redeem a slave with money, does that also make him mutter? It takes a status to become mutter to marry Bas Yisrael. That's like Mafri Avda. So what's the Gemara talking about? This whole Gemara, we're trying to find a case of chatzi ben chorin that he's not allowed to marry Shifra, he's not allowed to marry Bas Chorin. That's only a case where he got to get Shechur on half of him. So that half of him is a status of a Jew that's not allowed to marry a Shifra. But if it just was a question of if it does kesef, so the whole thing is only monetary issues. So as far as his status, he's a full slave. So what's the Gemara talking about? I don't know. Seems like too simple question. But this whole thing about Hafnei Lon Fidasa, that you redeem with this money, the whole Gemara we had, I think the whole Gemara we spoke about, I think maybe unless I missed the boat. But the whole Gemara was talking about is a mafkir. There's a monetary part that you're mafkir, or if you redeem, is there any difference? If somebody redeemed, then redeeming is different than being mafkir. If somebody redeemed him, or he redeemed himself, so does it take off the issa? It just takes off the money. It doesn't take off the issa. So the Gemara, I don't get it. I don't get how the Gemara is bringing this into our sugya. That's just a question of monetary. Sure, you can do monetary. What about also just money alone? What's that with our sugya about being mutter to a shefcha? So it takes off. So what's the whole sugya before about mafka avda? The Gemara spoke a couple of pages ago about Mocha that he himself couldn't free himself out, and the Gemara wanted to know how does he get take off the issa. The Gemara Gideon is different than being mafka avda. The Gemara spoke about he's allowed to buy himself out. Afu noticing to me. Okay, I'm gonna try to look into it more, but that's the question that has popped in, and you're saying that maybe Pidyon is stronger. So you don't have to need to get shechor. There's a new way to be podem. People are going to be podem for money, so also it becomes mutter. All these questions about that one. I think the Gemara did begin into the sugi. He's a get shechor, and the Gemara said, what did the Gemara say? There was I forgot the end of the Gemara over there. The Gemara asked the question about Afu no saying. Let's look for that Gemara. Maybe that's the key. Afu no saying the miyatzmo. Oh, that was the kasha over and the Flamet Chesam at base. Masisn Kavamas alay the Rav Tanu Pali. The kasha sounded like. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that was the more. I'm not sure. I have to look at it. You have to find it. I maybe got the wrong one. Okay. The more continues. Top of the page. Amar Rabba. Machlokes b'shesh. It's pretty late. Okay. Amar Rabba. Machlokes b'sheshifre chatzio v'iniya chatzio. Avol shifre chatzio mocha chatzio or nosan matana chatzio. Even the kanafik minei kule divyakol kanaf. Even though we said Rabbanan say you can't free half a slave, let's say Rabba's talking means shtam. Whatever, even though somebody says Rabbanan that you cannot free half a slave, that's only when you freed half and you kept half for yourself. But if you freed half and you sold the other half, or you freed half and you gave the other half as a present, so then since you gave away everything that you have, it is good enough. Kanaf means to go out. Kanafik kula mean kule. All of him is leaving. All of him is leaving. Kanafik. So since all of the Eved is leaving him, even though it's not getting free, he's not getting all free. He's getting half free and half sold to somebody else. But as far as me, the owner, he's leaving me completely. If I would free half of him and half of him is still by me, so then it's like you can't divorce half a wife. So you can't free half for Eved and the other half is still by you. But if I'm giving everything away, there's no such case by a woman anyway, because she can't have two husbands that one of them divorces her. But here's the case. That is, someone has an Eved, a person has an Eved. I'm sorry, I had a case of two. He can't give the half of his wife to somebody else. There's no such thing. He has to. So by a wife, they don't have such a concept. But by a slave, that is freeing half and giving the other half to somebody else. So since the whole Eved is leaving me, so a star shikhr that completely gets him out of my rishus, that's good enough. That was Rabba's chiddush. That even the Rabbanan say you cannot free half a slave that's only if you keep the other half. But if you give away the whole thing, either to himself and part to himself, part to somebody else, so then Rabbanan would agree that you could free half a slave. Because it'll be a chatzi ben chorin. That's also true. That he wanted to get a result of a chatzi ben chorin. So that's what he did. He freed and he sold. Good. Yashkar. I didn't realize that. Abai is going to attend. Yes. No, the part that he freed is complete. No. I had two hands. I had two hands. I had a whole one. So I half of them I gave to himself, freed him, and the other half I sold to somebody else. He's still He's going to be a Chatzi of Chatzi Ben Chorin. But I got rid of everything that I have. Half I gave to himself, half I gave to somebody else. But I don't own anything of him anymore. So when I give him a get shechur, even though I'm only giving him half of himself, but he's right. That means it was a successful liberation because I didn't keep the other half for myself. Low, pligi. You want to say that everybody would, that's what you just finished saying. What you just said. You just said that half a slave, everybody would agree that you could free half of it, as long as you didn't keep the other half. I'll show you that not. But Tanicha, we learned in the Brisa. One Brisa says, a person wrote his whole estate to his two slaves. He had two slaves, and he wrote his whole estate to two slaves. So they got the whole estate, and they also got each other because they're also part of the estate. Kanu, and they have to free. They could free each other because each one owns the half of the other. That sounds. How did he do that? When he that point alone, that he gave his nechasim to his two slaves. That's okay. Without the din that they gave shachar zeh, the fact that he gave his nechasim to his two slaves already shows that it worked. I'm giving my estate to my two slaves. He has two slaves, and he gives them a present, his whole estate. Yeah, if he'd say to one of it, I'm giving you all my whole estate, he owns, right, and he is part of the estate, so he was given himself, so he was free. Now he gave his whole estate to two of them. So both of them are shutfim in his estate, and each one owns half of the other one. Each one is half free and owns half of the other one. That alone, stop there. It says that it worked. How did it work? It says that he gave his whole estate to two of them, so each one owns half and is owned by half. That means that it worked. How did it work? How did he succeed by giving him half of his freedom? If he was saying, giving you everything, he gave him everything. But he didn't give him everything. He gave him only half. So he only gave him half of himself. He only gave the Eved half of himself. The other half he sold. He gave us a present. So that's not much the case of giving a freedom half and giving a present half. And it says that it works. So far it syncs with Rabbi. Rabbi said that you can do that. But the other Brisa says you cannot. Same case, Brisa says differently. Someone says, all my estate is given to Ploni and Ploni, my servants. They don't even get anything. Nothing happened. Why did nothing happen? Because he only freed half a slave. Each one, he only freed half. So that mamish seems to say a contradiction, that you can't free half a slave, even though you gave away the other half to somebody else. So what are you going to do with this contradiction? My love, Rebbe Rabbanan. It must be that the first Brisa says according to Rebbe that you could free half a slave, regardless if you gave the other kept it yourself or not. And the other Brisa that says that you cannot free half a slave, it goes according to Rabbanan that you cannot free half a slave, even though you gave away the other half to somebody else. So that's against you, Rabban. Rabban said that even according to Rabbanan, you cannot free half a slave, but with a star. But if you gave it away to somebody else, the other half you gave away, you didn't keep it for yourself, so you could. Here, this Brisa doesn't. No, what do you get? Yeah, he gave his estate to two slaves, and it says it doesn't work. Right? He gave it to themselves. He gave the same as before. He has two servants, Ploni and Ploni. No, one Benashim Machas. The Ploni and Ploni, but this the 2 years is not. It's really only 1 year. But this is called Ktiv Malay. But the Gemara puts in letters more and tell you how to do the vowels. Even though it's not correct, it's just a way of trick. It's a trick of how to tell us to read it.
1 year.
Yes, 100%. That's what it's doing. But they said they made up a system that's not really true in the Tanakh. You know, right? The 2 years, no such thing. But that's the way you say it in maybe in Aramis, or that's the way they made a code in order to be able to do it. They do it today also in Hebrew, Tiv Malay, I think. Right. I think in Yiddish also they would have written it too. Unless they would say, not into Yiddish. I don't think so. Because Yiddish, they maybe it was leaving. Okay. So anyway, the Gemara thinks it has a kasha on Rabbah, because here it says that he gave his estate to two of his slaves, and it doesn't work. Nothing works. Why don't they give it? Yes. The second brisa is again, yeah, and the first brisa, we're not going to make a machlokes. We're going to say the first brisa goes according to Rebbe, that you could free half a slave without any concern. You could free half a slave. But the second brisa that says you can't, surely not Rebbe, it must be the Rabbanan. And you say even according to Rabbanan it works, because he gave away everything. Half to himself, he made free, and half to somebody else. And here it says it doesn't work. Isn't that a kasha on you? Right? And it's a kasha on you. So the Gemara has 4 terutzim. I don't know how many we want to do today, but they have 4 terutzim. We'll do at least one. No, not necessarily. Either Rabbanan. It could be both prices are Rabbanan. And one of them says it is good. That's me. That's Rabbi says it's good. And the other one says it's not good. Why is it not good? If he had one contract, I think one contract. Maybe I was going to say soon a different notion about contracts. Rashi says 2 contracts, but he wrote 2. In each contract, he said, "I'm giving you all of my nechasim." He gave to 2 of his avadim all of his nechasim, since he gave it to them simultaneously. Let's make it simple. He gave it to them simultaneously. He had 2 avadim, and he wrote 2 stars, and each one he said, "I'm giving you my whole estate," and he presented it to them, at both avadim. So each one only owns half, because he gave the whole estate to 2 people. So that's going to be a case where. So each one gets half. They became partners. That's it. Or he wrote in his maybe one style, let's say, that he wrote, "I'm giving all my nechasim to Plony of Plony." So that works, because I'm right. That even though he only gave each one half of himself, the other half he gave to somebody else. He got rid of it from himself. So I'm right that here it says that it's good. What's the case where it says it's no good? That's what we're looking for. The Rabbi says that it's no good, doesn't it? No work. The Rabbi wants to show that somebody holds that it's not good. But he said chetzi means each contract said, "I'm giving you half." And let's say that he did it not simultaneously. I'm just trying to get to the Gemara easily for myself. That he gave it to one, I'm giving half of my estate. Another one, he said, "I'm giving half of my estate." So the first one, when he gave the first one, he didn't give away the other half. He only gave half of himself, but the other half of himself he kept for himself. He didn't give it yet. Soon he's going to give it. A minute later, he's going to give it to the other Eved. But so far he didn't. So far he gave it, he's left it for himself. Rabbi said that if he gave everything away, in that giving of that shechvur of the half, he gave the other half away. He didn't keep anything for himself. So then it works. But the case that the Bryce that says that it doesn't work is talking about the case where it's chetzi. He gave each one chetzi. So the second one he gave chetzi, you're right. But the first one that he gave chetzi, he kept the other half for himself. The second one, he didn't leave anything for himself. He just had a half, and he gave him his half. So then, but the first one he gave, he didn't give the other half away. He kept it for himself. That's why it's no good. But really, I'm right. Rabbi says I could protect myself. That I'm really right. That if he gave everything away, he could be meshachar half an eved. The case that it says it's no good is because it's chetzi. But the Gemara says, look on the Bryce. The Bryce itself says the case of chetzi in the next case. But Minatani say for the mom chetzi lo kanu. The Bryce where it says that it's not good. The second Bryce. It's a little confusing, I think, because we're going in the case where it says lo kanu. And then it says, and if he said chetzi, also lo kanu. So not the Bryce where it says yes kanu. The Bryce that says lo kanu. So it says, and he said chetzi lo kanu. So how could you say that the Bryce that says that it's not good is because it was chetzi? The Bryce continues and says chetzi is not good. But Tani Sefer, chetzi lo kanu must be that the Reish is talking about that he didn't say chetzi. Nechal the Reish that makulo, and you still say you see it's still no good. So your terrace doesn't fit into the words. So the Gemara answers Pushi Kama Farish. He's coming to the Bryce is not saying a new case. It's coming to explain. I said that when he said kulola, plenty about it, it's not good. In the case where he said chetzi. But if he would have given the whole thing to both of them, then it would work. You know why? So that's how Rabbah protects his shita, that it's possible to say that if he gave everything away, it would work. And the case that Bryce talks about, that's not because it was chetzi. The Gemara continues, Rabbah wants even, the Gemara continues still this teretz. It's not yet the second teretz. He wants to back himself up to prove that I'm right. That it's reasonable the way I'm saying that the Bryce means that it's explaining itself. The if the brisa in the beginning says that he gave to both avodim kula, and that's not good. So why does the brisa continue to say chetzi chetzi is no good? Of course, it's not good. He just finished saying that even kula is not good. That wouldn't make sense. So Rabbi wants to prove that the brisa must be explaining itself. It's not two cases; it's one case. Chetzi chetzi is not good, but kula would be good. But the Abai says back that wouldn't be a kasha. He can't be. He's not disproving it, but he's just saying you have no proof. If that's the only kasha, that the brisa shouldn't be saying something unnecessarily, that's not a kasha. The brisa explains itself for a reason. On the sefer the reisha, the sefer it says chetzi chetzi, that you should know that the reisha is only talking about chetzi, it's talking about kula. It wants to tell you that the reisha is talking about kula. The glei reisha, shalom toma reisha da chetzi chetzi. You might want to say like you that the reisha is chetzi chetzi, Avrohom kulo kanu. So it says in the sefer chetzi chetzi to tell you that the reisha is kulo, and so it's not good. Tell us sefer them chetzi chetzi. The reisha is kulo, afilu achilo kanu. So it's not a raya. You can't prove that the brisa and the reisha means chetzi chetzi, or else it will be extra that says something unnecessarily. It could be wanted to say it opposite. I wanted to say the brisa says chetzi chetzi in the end to say that the reisha is kulo, and that's also not good. So, but there's no kasha on Rabbi. Rabbi did get out of the kasha that he could say the reisha is only explaining the sefer whereas chetzi chetzi, and he didn't give everything away. If he would have given everything away, it would have been good. That's the first teretz. There are three more teretzim coming up. We could stop here, or we could continue. Whatever everybody prefers. So we'll stop then. Okay. The first one didn't get any. No, but the first one. No, but if the first half doesn't work, so then he still has it. The first half doesn't work. Why doesn't it? Oh, you didn't get anything. So our master still owns it. Is that true? When the master gives to the first step, it's chetzi. So what's the other chetzi? Still belongs to him. Still belongs to the master. So it doesn't work. No. We're going to Rabbanan. You can't give that yourself. The whole thing is going to Rabbanan. The whole shit is going to Rabbanan. So that then it works. And now the second one is the first one. Okay, we'll be back in a couple of minutes with